The Christmas lights were still blinking when he slid the papers across the table. Red, green, gold, mocking us. "Just sign," he said. "Let's not make this harder than it has to be." My hands were shaking. I was 7 months pregnant, sitting in my mother-in-law's living room, my swollen feet barely touching the floor. The smell of cinnamon and roast chicken filled the air while my world quietly collapsed. "On Christmas?" I whispered. He sighed like I was inconveniencing him. "My parents are here," he said. "It's better to finish this before the new year." Finish this. Like I was a chore. I looked down at the papers. Divorce. Custody clauses. Words I never thought would be written beside my name while my baby kicked gently inside me, as if asking what was wrong. His mother stood near the tree, arms crossed. "You should be grateful," she said coldly. "Many women would be thrown out already." Thrown out. I glanced around. Gifts under the tree. Stockings with his name still stitched beside mine. "Why?" I asked him softly. "What did I do?" He didn't meet my eyes. "You've changed," he said. Pregnancy made everything complicated. Tears blurred the ink as I picked up the pen. I signed. Not because I agreed, but because something inside me whispered, "This isn't the end. This is the moment everything begins." As I stood to leave, holding my belly, his father said something that froze me in place. "Make sure the baby doesn't become our problem." I walked out into the cold Christmas night, tears falling freely. And I made a silent promise to the life growing inside me. They will regret the day they taught me how strong I can be. Snow started falling as I stepped outside. Soft. Quiet. Cruel. I stood there for a moment, one hand on my belly, the other clutching the coat I'd forgotten to button properly. My breath came out shaky, white clouds disappearing into the dark. Behind me, the door closed. Not slammed. Just closed. Like I no longer existed inside that house. I walked to the bus stop because I had nowhere else to go. No car. No plan. Just a baby kicking gently, unaware that its parents' marriage had ended before it even began. At the stop, I finally let myself cry. Not loud. Just tears rolling down, one after another. I kept replaying his words. "You've changed." Of course I had. I was carrying life. I was tired. I needed care. And instead, I was handed divorce papers like a Christmas card. When the bus arrived, the driver looked at me with concern. "You okay, miss?" he asked. I nodded, lying. I found a seat near the back and pressed my forehead to the cold glass. Christmas lights blurred into long streaks as the bus moved. That's when my phone buzzed. A message from him. "Make sure you don't tell anyone yet. Let's keep this private." I stared at the screen. Private. Like my pain was something to hide. I turned my phone off. Because that night, sitting alone on a bus with nothing but my unborn child and a broken future, I realized something powerful. If they could abandon me this easily, then I would survive without them. And they would never see it coming. I spent Christmas night on my cousin's couch. She didn't ask questions. She just handed me a blanket and said, "Sleep. We'll talk later." I barely slept. Every time the baby moved, fear followed. Hospital bills. Diapers. A future I hadn't planned to face alone. In the morning, sunlight crept through the curtains, cruelly bright for a life that felt so dark. My cousin placed a mug of tea in my hands and finally asked, "What happened?" I told her everything. She listened quietly, jaw tightening with every word: Christmas, the papers, his parents, the sentence about the baby being their problem. "That child is not a problem," she said firmly. "And neither are you." My phone buzzed again. This time, it was my mother-in-law. "Remember what we discussed? No drama. No posts. No calling relatives." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was clear. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about image. That morning, I went to my first prenatal appointment alone. When the nurse asked, "Is the father joining you today?" I paused. Then I said, "No. It's just me." She smiled gently. "That's okay. We'll take good care of you." As I listened to my baby's heartbeat, steady, strong, I felt something shift. I wasn't abandoned. I was redirected. And whatever waited ahead of me, I knew one thing for sure. I would never beg people to love me or my child again. 2 days later, I went back to the apartment to collect my things. He wasn't there. His mother was. She stood in the doorway, arms folded, eyes scanning my belly like it offended her. "Take only what's yours," she said. "We don't want misunderstandings." I nodded calmly and began packing. Baby clothes I'd bought quietly. Medical files. A framed ultrasound photo he'd never looked at twice. She watched in silence until I reached for a small envelope on the shelf. "What's that?" she asked sharply. "My medical receipts," I replied. "And the savings I put aside before pregnancy." Her expression shifted. "You should leave that," she said. "He paid for most things." I stopped and met her eyes. "No," I said evenly. "I did. I worked until my doctor told me to stop." She scoffed. "You won't manage alone." That's when I felt it. Not fear, not sadness. Clarity. "I don't need to manage alone," I said. "I need to manage correctly." I packed the envelope. As I turned to leave, she said something she thought would wound me. "He'll move on quickly." I smiled softly. "So will I said. Just not into the same mistakes." Outside, I sat in the car and breathed through a kick from my baby. They thought I was weak because I cried when I signed. They didn't realize those tears were grief leaving my body, making room for something far stronger. The lawyer's office smelled like paper and coffee. I sat there alone, one hand resting on my belly, listening as she flipped through the documents I'd signed on Christmas. "You didn't waive your rights," she said finally. "You protected more than you realize." I blinked. "I did?" She nodded. "Spousal support during pregnancy. Medical coverage. Child support after birth. And custody, strongly in your favor." Something loosened in my chest. All those nights I blamed myself for signing too quickly. I hadn't been reckless. I'd been exhausted. "And his parents?" I asked quietly. The lawyer's lips pressed together. "Their opinions don't matter here." That afternoon, I applied for housing assistance in a short certification program I'd postponed when I got married. It wasn't glamorous. It was possible. My phone buzzed once. "My mom says you took things that weren't yours." I didn't reply. Instead, I felt my baby roll, a slow, steady movement that grounded me. At home, my cousin helped me set up a small corner for the baby, just a crib, a lamp, and hope. She smiled and said, "This is enough to start." That night, I wrote a list. Doctor appointments. Savings goals. Boundaries. At the top, I wrote one sentence and underlined it twice. I will not raise my child in a place where love is conditional. And for the first time since Christmas, I slept. Not in fear, but with direction. The call came a week later. Not from him. From his lawyer. I put the phone on speaker and kept folding baby clothes. "There's concern," the lawyer said carefully, "that you're asking for more than necessary." I almost laughed. "Necessary?" I repeated. "I'm pregnant. I have medical bills. And your client asked me to sign divorce papers on Christmas." Silence. Then, softer, "We're advising him to settle." That night, he finally called. His voice was unfamiliar, thin, cautious. "I didn't think it would go like this," he said. "My parents thought you'd just disappear." There it was. Disappear. I didn't disappear, I replied. I showed up, for myself and our child. He tried another angle. We can be civil. Maybe adjust things quietly. No, I said. Quiet is how people get erased. He sighed. You're different now. I smiled. I had to be. After the call, I sat by the window, watching snow melt into water. Winter always looks permanent, until it isn't. My baby kicked again, strong and sure. And I understood something that night. They thought my tears meant surrender. What they never learned was this. Tears can be the moment a woman decides. The settlement moved faster after that call. His lawyer stopped pushing. The tone changed. The language softened. By February, the papers were amended. Medical costs covered. Temporary support approved. Clear custody terms written in ink, not hope. He never apologized. But he complied. And that told me everything I needed to know. One afternoon, my mother-in-law showed up at my cousin's door. Unannounced. Uninvited. She looked tired. You've made this very difficult, she said. I kept my voice calm. I made it fair. She glanced at my belly. He's scared. He didn't think you'd fight. I'm not fighting, I replied. I'm preparing. She didn't have a response to that. After she left, my cousin hugged me tightly. I'm proud of you, she said. I was, too, but not for the reasons people expect. I wasn't proud because I'd won anything. I was proud because I hadn't shrunk. Every night, I talked to my baby. I told them about resilience. About choosing dignity. About not staying where love is used as leverage. As my due date approached, fear still visited, but it didn't stay. Because I wasn't alone anymore. I had something stronger than a marriage. I had purpose. And one part remained. The moment when everything would finally come full circle. The next Christmas looked nothing like the last. No blinking lights mocking me. No papers slid across a table. Just a small apartment, a tiny tree, and my baby sleeping peacefully in my arms. I watched their chest rise and fall, slow and steady, and felt a kind of peace I didn't know existed a year earlier. He sent a message that morning. Merry Christmas. I hope you're okay. I didn't reply. Because I was more than okay. I was free. Free from walking on eggshells. Free from parents who saw pregnancy as inconvenience. Free from a marriage where love evaporated when I needed it most. I thought about the woman I was last Christmas, crying, shaking, signing papers with swollen hands. She wasn't weak. She was being born. I kissed my baby's forehead and whispered. You will never have to earn love by being easy. Outside, snow fell gently, soft, clean, forgiving. Not every ending comes with revenge. Some endings come with peace. And that night, holding the life I protected when no one else did, I understood the truth. They didn't break me on Christmas. They freed me.